Hello, Empire. Garrett here with this week's edition of Regent's Corner. Sorry I didn't put out a video last week. I was actually on vacation. I was out in Virginia visiting the old stomping grounds, for friends' naval retirement, and of course the night and ceremony of Ursula the Bear, Night of the Flame, if you're curious. So this week's video we're going to do is another project video. So this is another very simple, easy project that's going to be very useful for you, even if you, especially if you're space short on space. Basically, you don't have a workbench, you don't have this. All you're working on is your kitchen table. So this is going to help you keep your tools organized and in one place. And even if you don't want to do leatherworking, this is a great little thing that you can use for other stuff, such as holding your little pliers, scissors, for your other crafts. So basically, what we're going to do today is a very simple fold over, roll top back, tool bag. So just giving an example, so I can sit, just all kinds of stuff, so I can sit my there in there. I can put my stamps, punches. You can put all kinds of stuff in this. It really holds up quite a lot of stuff. It's basically to have a total of 6 for this style. It's going to end up giving you 6 holes. Well, not holes, but 6 places, and some of it's going to be wide enough that you can put multiple things in. And there, it's going to be a nice little roll top that you can literally fold over and store away. So let's start off with a tool list. You're going to need, obviously, a 12-inch ruler. We're going to be using a 6-inch, not 6-inch, 6mm punch. We're going to be using a Crafts Tool 3780-02 round punch for this one. And I'm going to be using a head knife, or a mini head knife, if you will, to cut the leather, because I feel it cuts better garment grade leather. So, now, this leather here happens to be a 3-ounce chrome tan, and this is the perfect size, so that's what we're going to go with, because this is a 8.5 by 11, which happens to be the size you can buy. Either they sell it by the piece at Tandy. You can also find it at Michael's in the leather working station, leather section there. So for this one, we're going to be using a pre-cut out piece of some new oil tan leather I got. So decided to make this out of scrap. So you can also make it out of the scrap. Now the final dimension is entirely up to you, how big or small you want to make it. I just think an 8.5 by 11 seems to be a good size to hold enough tools. So with that, we're going to go ahead and flip it over. Now we're going to roll the end over. Now once again, how deep you go with this depends on how long your tools are. So if we're assuming we're going to go with basically a swivel knife, you're going to want about 2.5 inches. So let's go ahead and measure. And this doesn't have to be an exact science. You know, this isn't going to be anything rough or even. We're just making this, like I said. This is going to be all approximation. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now, we're going to be using... So we're going to start on the very outside edge, about a 1/8 inch in. And we're going to go ahead and press our hair down. Of course, we're going to use a hammer. We're going to knock that in. And we're going to do... Now, just for this, just on the ends, we're going to go over this corner here. So we're going to use our 2-prong 6mm. Because I want to just go over that end there to secure that edge. Okay, and of course from there we're going to use thread. I'm going to be using 0.8 millimeter Ritza Tiger thread, but you can use whatever thread you have. I'm just going to use black because why not? It's the most common thing in the world. And for this, we're just going to go ahead. This one I'm going to stitch. You could also do this with rivets if you want to do it faster and you don't have the time to do it. So for the purpose of this video, so I don't make it into a 2 or 3 part video, I'm just going to do a quick end. Oh, let me get the other one on. So we're going to stitch one on here, and we're just going to use a standard saddle stitch, nothing fancy here. And I'm going to try to stitch this as quickly as I can so this doesn't end up being a 30-minute video you guys watch me stitch and talk to myself. Trying to make sure I do this on video. We want to even out our things. Get that out of the way. So with the, as far as the thickness leather, you definitely want to go with about a 3 ounce. I think a 3 ounce chrome tan leather is just about perfect. This is about a 4 ounce, 5 ounce oil tan. Might be a little overkill, but it could also be easier to work with. It's not as flexible or stretchy, so there's that. I'm hoping you can see my. Now for this, you could also put it in a stitching pony if you have one, need one. But this one's pretty straightforward. So as you see, normally like I'm doing here, I'm pulling the thread out of the way as I put the needle through. That's so I don't puncture the thread on the way through and create a knot. And it becomes a real pain in the butt to do that, to undo that. So now when we pull it, you want to just pull snug, little pressure. You don't need to crank it down, and you certainly don't yeah, you want to have clean. Now this one I'm going to go ahead and make my loop, and then it's going to make a little knot there. That's going to lock that in nice and neat, and it's going to give it strength. And then I'm going to do that again at the very top, because that's where your stress point's going to be. Now for just the ends, we're going to overlap that end, and I'll show you what we're going to do for the next, and we're going to rinse. And basically the nice thing is, I overdid that. I overshot that one. Yeah. Just light, even. The biggest thing when you're doing is even pressure. If you're too hard on necks or too little on necks, too much, too little, inconsistent pressure, it's going to cause your thread to wave. So you want to make it nice and even. Follow the thread there. So now we're going to go over this. We're going to go to that so you don't have that corner there. That's going to help secure and lock in that corner. Beep. Now we're going to back thread, which is basically you're just going to do a reverse, which you just did in reverse. And we're going to do a couple, about 2 or 3 back. We're not going to go crazy with it. Just enough to keep it lock in that stitching. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut this off. We'll melt the edges. Use whatever scissors you have or need. Nothing special here. And we're going to use our lighter. And we're just going to melt those ends down. Now this is totally optional, but I like to use a roller. You could also use a hammer and tack it down. But I like to roll my edges down nice and flat. Just go ahead and just get it over with. So now, for this, we're going to decide how far wide we want. Well, if we're doing the 8.5 by 11, we're going to use our ruler, and we're going to do it the width of a ruler. So I'm just going to line that up right against the inside of the thread here. And then just like before, remember, we don't have to go super deep, even with Chrome Tam. Just enough to puncture through the leather. So we're going to keep her there, because that's going to give us... There, we put our thread right in there. Now, with the 2.5 inch fold and the 6mm thread, for the rest of these, to the main binding, until we work to the outside edge, I'm only going to do 2 punches. And you're going to try to, you know, make it as straight as possible. And we'll go ahead and I will do, where did I put my thread? I'll go ahead and stitch this one up, and then you're just going to keep doing this all the way down to the end. Now the end's going to be a bit bigger. As you can see here, you're going to have a bigger end here, and the rest of these should be about consistently about 1 inch wide. So you'll end up with 6 tool holders in total for if you're using an 8.5 by 11 piece of leather. But like I said, you can scale it up, you can scale it down, entirely up to you. And then I'm going to stitch this one up, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to cut those corners to give it a nice finished look. That's also completely optional. I mean, this is going to be this is what I call a utilitarian. So usually if it's something that's just utility based, I don't care about it. It's not there to look pretty. It's there to do a job. I usually don't worry too much about the aesthetics. So you don't even have to cut the corners of the flap if you don't want to. That is entirely up to you. And just like any other stitching, we're going to just go ahead and stitch this up just like we normally would. Now I like to start from the back to front. You could do front to back. It makes no difference. The only thing is once you start this way, you have to keep this way. So I can't. Come on. Oop. Oh, that's going to go through. Yeah, sometimes it gets a little tricky. So what I don't want to do is take the top and then go from here. That's going to screw up your thread. Plus, remember, it's interlacing the thread. So if I start flip-flopping it, it's not going to interlace properly. So for this purpose of this video, I'm starting from the bottom from the right-hand side. It's just a personal preference. You can start from the top, bottom. And then, like I said, we just roll. We're going to go through there. Pull that out of the way. Move that in there. Now, if I was putting this on a stitching pony, and I was doing this, you know, the other way you can do that, if you don't want to, is you can do both like that. Do the X. Pull through. Drop it through there. Oh, sorry. Take it through the loop and make a knot. Now, something like this, and like in general, I don't do that on every single thread because you just don't need to. Unless you're really in something like it's going to be really high stress point. Usually I do it every third or fourth line, and then especially at the top here, I'll definitely do it the last two because that's a high stress point, and that's where that's the most important to do. So now the reason we're not going over the end there like we did here is here I want a little bit of gap. I want a little flap. Makes it easier to reach in and grab the material and grab whatever the tool is you're putting it into. So it just gives it a little more flexibility in my opinion. But you can go ahead and, you know, go all the way over too if you want. But in my experience with tool bags and toolboxes and all that, you're better off. So we're going to do the X. And then on this side, we're going to run that through. Give it a little tight. That's going to give us our knot. And then we're going to backstitch. So we're just going to go the exact opposite of what we just did. And we're going to do, and then, so, and like I said, you can totally custom make this. So if you have something with longer tools, shorter tools, wider tools, if you want to do it for hold all your like jewelry pliers, for example, or you need it to, heck, you could even make a big one for kitchen knives, for knives, wrenches, literally anything. All right, so we got about, 2, 3, there's plenty. So what you're going to do is you would just, you're going to rinse and repeat. I'm not going to do this all on video. We're already 17 minutes in. So we cut nice and close. We get our there. We're just gonna take the lighter. We're gonna melt those right there to where they're nice and shiny. Press it down. That's gonna flatten that out. That's gonna keep that from. It gives it a smooth, professional look, without it. So as you see there, we have our first tool holder. I'll just go ahead and use that as an example. So you see how that perfectly holds there. And then we could just, and you're just going to keep going. So the next set we would do is I would just lay my ruler right there. And then we would punch the holes. And we're going to work our way all the way down to the end. And we do that. So with that, make sure I get this on video. So now we're going to talk the corners here. Like I said, we could just take this, fold it over, call it done. That's totally prerogative, but hey, we're going to make it look a little more professional, a little clean. Now, the reason I'm using this instead of my other ones is it's got a nice little mark line here. And this just happens to be the right size. So I'm going to lay it down to right where the corners meet, line the white edge there in the corner. So it's lined up. Then I'll take my hammer and we're going to do the same. Drag it until it fits. Line it up in the corner. So that nice little marker line fits in the corner. Let me do this so you can see it. And voila. This makes quick work with that. That's the one advantage of this I like is you have that line there. It's not a tool I use a lot. But now we have a nice smooth round edge. That way it gives it a more professional, nice look to it. Just like what we have here. Now here I went fancy and I'm practicing I'm practicing my lace work. It looks like crap, but hey, like I said, this is utilitarian, not there. Now, another thing we're going to do, and this is another option, is we're going to line this. Now, once again, this all depends on what you're putting in there, how deep it's going. So I'm going to assume you're using, say, a cheap, there. You can line that up, and then typically, boom. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put a hole just right on the end there. And what that's going to do, where's my cord? Oh. So we're going to just take a piece of ripcord. It can be leather, it can be lace, it can be anything. And you're just going to run that through. So that way, when you fold this over, you can just tie it up. Really simple, really easy. So as you see right there, I already got a nice little there to hold my tool. And this is going to hold its shape and form over time. And yes, the little rubber thing likes to get stuck in there. It's annoying. But then again, if you always leave it on just that one spot, it doesn't really matter. And so like I said, so if you really want to see how this works, we're good. So now we're just going to go ahead and take the ruler. Like I said, we mark it just on the inside of that. We're going to take our, there. So what we're trying to do is, you're going to put it on just on that outside there. So that way we get a consistent line and we're not like, so it's not high, low, high, all different heights. It stays the same height each time. You're going to pull that out. We're going to set that back one right in the last hole. We're going to make sure that's nice. So we're going to use the ruler as our guide. So we're not doing like I normally do with a stitch groover and making a stitch guide. And in theory, if you wanted to, you could just go down the line and stitch and punch all your holes in one fell swoop. If you want to do it, you can do it one at a time. I generally tend to do it one at a time personally, but so we're just gonna walk our way down, put it right there, and then like I said, we're not going to do the overlap here on the rest of these because I just like it on the corner just because we want to support that corner. But like that, I want to have a little flexible room right there for the tool to stretch. But that's just personal preference. That's just me. You're certainly, it's going to be your piece. You do what you want. And then all we would do to keep that stretched. Boom. So this last one, obviously, we're going to have way more room than a little bit more room. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to line that up at the 1/8 side. So you'll end up with one with just a little bit bigger than the others. But that's okay because that's where your big tool will go. And then, like I said, for this one, because we're on the end, we're going to use our 2-prong. And we'll just go ahead and line that up so that way we'll secure that edge down. This is why if I were trying to use a 6, or if you only have a big one, you can always push it back and do like that and fill the back holes in and then space it out too. So if you only have a big one or 4, however, or if you only have a 2, you can just sit there and do boom, 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 boom. And then from here, we would stitch this all up and we fold this over and you have in literally maybe 30 minutes, you have a nice new fancy, so big fat one can go on the end, and then you can put your tools. You said, yeah, you can put all kinds of there. So sometimes you can even put multiple punches in there. So it's a great space saver. It's a really easy project. Like I said, and you can make multiples of them if you need to. They're great for carrying tools around. And you can use them for more than just leather tools. You can use them for almost any tool you need. You can also use them for really, like I said, any tool you need. So I'm not going to stitch here and stitch all this up. You get the gist of it. So with that, we're going to call this a video done. I will finish this up. So if you ever want to see how it's done, just come see me. And till next time, stay crafty.